Hi. So, for everybody who may or may not know me, I'm Melissa Maribel. I teach chemistry, obviously, on YouTube. I graduated and have my bachelor's degree in chemistry. Goodness, there's been a lot that I've done these past few years, and I've been on YouTube now for I think this is my fourth year. Wow, that's where does the time go? But yeah, that's kind of what I do, what I've been doing. And basically, what I wanted to do with this live stream was to answer any questions that you may have regarding, like how do you properly study? How do you properly prepare for a semester? Whether or not you're taking Chem 1, Chem 2, O-Chem, and so on. Just all of those different tips and tricks that I've kind of found and figured out as a student and as well as a tutoring for over 10 years. So that's kind of like what I wanted to go over, as well as any career or college advice that you may have, life advice, all of the advice. Just kind of a little brief thing about myself. I actually initially was a biochem major, then I switched to a chemistry major, and this was all to be actually, I was pursuing a career in dentistry, which is very strange, I know, to say that now and be doing something completely different and being on YouTube and teaching. So, I basically have experience, is what I'm trying to say. I have experience with looking into how to get into grad school. I do have experience in the field of dentistry. And yeah, so I kind of have an idea as to what to do, how to get into grad school, and basically knowing all of the pressures of taking those tests and all of those classes. So, I'm happy to answer those types of questions. And I'm going to get right into it. Let me see. Let me know first off, what are you guys taking this semester? Chem 1, Chem 2, OChem? Let me know in the chat right now because I want to know like what level you guys are currently at, and just also know that a lot of these tips that I'm going to be sharing is for all science levels essentially. So a lot of these are just standard kind of things that I've seen with students that I've previously tutored, as well as myself. So let's see, we have Chem 2, awesome. OChem, yes. Chem 1, okay. AP Chem, awesome. And then someone is doing thermochemistry right now. Okay, cool. Okay, so I see basically all the chems. Awesome. And then high school honors chem. Perfect. Okay. This is just going through. Love it. Love it. Okay. Now that I see that basically everybody is taking some form of chemistry, something that I always get, the question of is how do you study? How do you prepare for these types of classes that are difficult? Like let's be honest, this is if you're a science major or even just taking a chemistry or science class, it's difficult. It's not going to be simple. It's not designed to be simple. But of course, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm trying to do is turn all of these complex concepts and simplify them for you. So one major thing that I've noticed with just being a chemistry student previously and tutoring in the past um, was you need as much time with the material as possible. So I remember being in my organic chemistry class, and I had a teacher who he was like, why don't you get this? Why don't you guys understand this? And he was frustrated with us. But then I had to rethink, and I'm like, we have what, like a matter of weeks to master this topic, versus someone who has had years, to master and perfect and understand this topic. So that's something that I had to kind of understand. And it's like, yeah, okay, that does make sense. It's okay that I'm not going to understand absolutely everything and not get frustrated with myself for not mastering it immediately, and instead to kind of bypass that and to work around that. I made sure to stay ahead. So I literally would use my syllabus. So that is basically like your main guide for the entire semester. Okay. That syllabus, one, hold on to it, don't lose it. So that is basically telling you what you're going to cover. What I ended up doing, and this completely radically changed my grades after I did this, was I would actually watch videos and read the chapter of whatever I'm going to cover, like before lecture. So let's say if I was going to cover thermochemistry, and my class was, let's say, tomorrow, then today or the day before, I would watch videos, I would get familiar with the terminology, with reactions, whatever it may be, so that once I get into lecture, I'm not actually just like rushing one to write everything down and not actually listening to what the professor has to say, not actually understanding the terms, or like it's brand new. So instead you should get familiar with the concepts, with the terms, even if you don't completely understand it. It's just to kind of like just not to be completely new with it. All right. So that's a huge part of how I was successful, was getting ahead, staying ahead. And then once I was in lecture, it made more sense. And then, of course, after lecture, you then do as many practice problems as possible to really make sure that you retain the information. So that's kind of the overall main tips I would say for studying. And that has been like kind of like a winning formula overall. Besides that, let's see what you guys are asking and what you guys are saying. So let me go back. Hi, Melissa. I'm taking organic chem next semester. Do you have any tips for taking organic chemistry? Yes, I do. So one major thing for everyone taking O-Chem is you're going to be tempted to memorize all of the mechanisms, all of the reactions. And I'm going to tell you right then and there that if you do that, sure, you could pass, but you will forget them, and then moving on to O-Chem 2 will be really difficult because you didn't actually understand the concepts. So what I instead recommend you do is to understand how the mechanisms actually work. What kicks off the reaction, instead of just automatically memorizing, oh, okay, this, like immediately memorizing every single type of reaction. I tell you that from my own experience is I took a summer class, a summer O-Chem class, and I don't advise that at all. And though I did well, I felt like I did just memorize it, and I didn't actually attempt to understand everything because it was so fast paced. And then when I went into O-Chem 2, it was very difficult actually. And I didn't do as good as I did in O-Chem 1 because I didn't actually retain the information and understand everything. So, one of the main things I'm going to say is understand the 4 different types of reactions that you see, SN1, SN2. If you haven't gotten there, don't worry, you will get into that. But once you do get into that, truly understand how to identify those types of reactions and how to identify, like what's a nucleophile, what's a leaving group, all of those different things, electrophile. I know these words may seem kind of foreign right now, but when you get to that, don't memorize, actually understand. So I'm going to say that over and over again because it is critical. That's for anyone taking really any chemistry class, but specifically organic chemistry, and I would even say biochemistry, because you do use organic chemistry again in biochemistry. Okay, let's see other questions. This one was, hi Melissa, I just got your flashcards and all note bundle. I'm so excited. This is my second go at chemistry. Thank you. We are having a slow start, but I know things will get hot and heavy. Yes, they will very soon. But awesome. Well, one, I'm so glad that you got the flashcards, got all the notes. That's definitely going to help you out. For everyone who may or may not know, I do have my own chemistry notes, chemistry like ebooks. Think of them as how-to guides on really common topics like stoichiometry, thermochemistry. I also have a lot of topics also on Chem 2. So I do have actually 4 right now, and then the majority of my notes are for Chem 1. So, but I do have some topics like kinetics and titrations that can really help you, redox reactions and all of that. So basically what it is, they're the guides that I wish I had. Yeah, so the reason why I made these overall was because I always felt like I didn't actually understand how to, one, do my homework, and two, I didn't know what patterns and things I should be focusing on and exactly what to study. Like I wish that someone could just tell me, "Hey, this is gonna probably be on the test." "Hey, this is something that you should understand. These are the reasons why you actually do this step." And it's basically just a guide, and think of it as literally someone telling you like, "Hey, I took a class already. I know what you're going to be tested on, and I put it all here. So that was basically the premise of making the notes. And the flashcards as well are something that I'm very proud of. Besides it being my own product, I of course designed it with the intention of someone who is completely new to chemistry. And if you don't know how to name compounds, this is basically the holy grail of naming compounds. It has everything. I mean, everything that I can think of, I put into this cute little box. So it's basically just over 100 compounds that you could practice naming and memorize the polyatomic ions. It even comes with a periodic table that has all of the different charges for every, and I mean every single element, even different alternative names to like transition metals and so on. I literally just found everything that you need for this one topic and put it in one place because I don't know about you guys, but for some reason, whenever I'd read my book, one, I'd be very confused. And two, I noticed that not everything was there. Like I would go to lecture and then I'd see, oh, wait, the teacher just taught something a little bit different. That's not in my book. Why isn't that in my book? Like why isn't all this information in just one place? And that's what I'm honestly trying to do with my products. I'm trying to put everything in one place so that you don't have to keep searching. And it's honestly not as much study time. Like, let's be honest, you don't want to study. I get it. I know. I was a student. Like there's so many more distractions, especially now with online school. You just want to binge, different shows. Anybody else watching Cobra Kai? I am. I just finished it, loved it. You know, so it's those sort of things. I get it. And with all of my, videos and resources, this is a way to cut your study time in half and just to help you understand it once and for all so you can move on and you can graduate, you can do what you actually want to do in life. I know that a lot of people don't necessarily want to be chemists. Instead, you want to be doctors or dentists or, actually I want to know, what do you guys want to be? Like what is your goal with whatever you're majoring? What do you want to do? I like that someone just said Cobra Kai ending was amazing. Yes, it was. No spoilers, though. I can't wait for the next one. I also have a friend who actually, she's also a YouTuber, um, and she has her own dojo, and she can actually do some of these moves, and it's incredible. And I'm just, sitting here like I'm good, can't do any of that, but it looks incredible. Um, cool. So pharmacist, someone wants to be a pharmacist. Yes, nice. PA, nice. Nurse, yep. Physician's assistant. Okay, we got another PA. Doctor. Very cool. Surgeon. Okay. Neurosurgeon. Wow. Okay. Dietitian. Investor. Hey, I see you. Bioanalytics. Let's see what else. Civil engineering. We got engineering. Okay. Veterinarian. Da, da, da. Let's see. Dental hygienist. Nice. Another dentist. Got another dental hygienist. Yep. Future dentist. Hello. We just got a random I love you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Uh, cool. Okay. I mean, you guys are incredible. Like, I honestly love seeing your guys' dreams and seeing that you want to pursue, higher education and you want to pursue a career overall. I know that though I decided to pivot, later on in life to do this, which still sometimes I'm going to be honest, I can't believe is my job. But yeah, like it's interesting to just see like one where what you guys want to do, and it's also interesting to just kind of see the journey. And one thing I did want to mention, having all of these goals and having this kind of like future idea of who you want to be and what you want to do, for everyone who may not know right now, or if at some point in your career or in your education you see something else and you think, hey, should I still continue at, pursuing this pre-med career? Should I still continue doing this? Um, one major thing that I will say is one, it is okay to pivot if you decide. Two, if you don't know what you want to do for the rest of your life, because it's a huge decision, that's okay. That's completely okay. Like now is the time to truly figure that out, to understand, what makes you you. And it's to understand what you want to do with your life. So, kind of just to understand this, like as I pivot and talk about this real quick. Um, so I wanted to be a dentist. I knew that in high school. I wanted it so badly. to the point where I even became a dental assistant in high school, and little overachiever me, at the time I interned, did all of that. Um, Very, very cool things that I was, fortunate to do and see. I wanted to be a cosmetic dentist specifically. And, that came from my own personal like life situations where um, early on, like in life, I saw the dentist in a heroic light. I had an accident where the dentist actually saved my smile and fixed my smile, and that actually brought me confidence. So then thought in my mind, I'm like, I want to be a dentist. Like they literally are smile restorers. They make people smile. They help people, and that's where my heart has always been. And something that I didn't understand at the time because I was, too young, was just thinking, why did I like this career? What did I want to do with it? Like what was the main reason, or what do I want from a career overall? And I thought about it and I'm like, well, I want to make the biggest impact I possibly can. Like what am I good at? What do I want to do with my life? Like I absolutely want to help people. That was a huge part of it. And then later on, as I'm going through college and chemistry is getting tough, my classes are very, very challenging, and I don't pass the first class, my first chemistry class. Shocker, I know. I still laugh about it, just thinking, wow, that happened. Look at how far we've come now. But during those moments, I was broken, and I actually thought that I was a complete failure. Um, when I didn't pass my first class, and just it was a struggle. It honestly was it was difficult. And I'm sure several of you guys have experienced failure, and you will. That's part of life. But luckily you experience failure, and around the corner is success. That's how it works. We learn from our mistakes, and a lot of times, that failure actually makes you so much stronger. And it also helps you connect with other people, which is why we're here. But besides that, I became a tutor in college and I loved it. I wanted to then teach. And then my mind went to, okay, I'll be a dentist and I'll be a professor. At the same time, after I graduate, I'll be a dentist and I'll work at the dental school as a professor. And then that's where I'm like, okay, that's the biggest impact I can do. And it just kept leveling up and kept going. And I just then realized that, you know what? As much as I love dentistry and I think it's such a beautiful career, I realized that the biggest impact I could do was this. I felt like this is where I was needed and am needed. So, long story short, I just want to say that if later in life you experience one, you will experience very different things in life because that's part of life. You're allowed to pivot. And it was very difficult, especially when after graduation, your, you know, father gives you a plaque saying, Doctor, was the Maribel. That was tough. And then telling them, hey, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to do YouTube. Weird conversation. Yeah. Um, but anyways, they thankfully accept all of that. But yeah, it's a difficult decision. I understand that. So if any point, just telling anybody who feels that way down the line and you feel like, hey, this isn't for me, I want to pivot. I didn't know that this career was an option. Listen to that. It's okay to change your mind and it's okay to not specifically know. So, long story short, just wanted to say that. Okay. Let's see what you guys have been saying. Oh, sharing your story is so important. No, thank you. I'm glad I could share. I'm happy to share my story. I don't feel like I do it enough, and I want to do that because, like, I don't want you to think that it's all been easy. It hasn't. It's been very difficult, actually. I felt like a lot of times in college, I felt like I was like crawling to the finish line, crawling to the graduation stage. Like it really felt that way. I did not always feel like the smartest person in class. If anything, I felt like I didn't belong, which I know is shocking to be at this stage and say that, but that was how I felt. I did not have confidence in my abilities in college, specifically in chemistry in the very beginning. It took some time, practice, failure, and me trying over and over again to realize, hey, you just need to figure out how you learn. what sticks, those sort of things. Let's see. What else do you guys have questions for me? I loved hearing how you guys are all how you guys are all pursuing actually pretty much health careers, which is so important. Let's see what you guys are saying now. Ask me questions. Did you ever do any type of dentistry? Yes, I did. So I initially wanted to be a cosmetic dentist. I became a dental assistant in high school, as I mentioned. So I interned for several different dentists. One was an orthodontist. That was actually my first internship. So that's the one with braces and all of that. It was really cool to be able to make the actual models for patients. And I even got to make the retainers for certain patients as well, take impressions, all of that. So I did practice a lot of that and actually still know a lot about dentistry today, which is handy. And then the other thing that I did do was, oh, this was really cool. This was my favorite one, was working in a cosmetic dentist office. They actually had a lab where I would work with the lab tech, and we actually made like dentures for patients. That was awesome. I did x-rays. I have my x-ray license actually. Not that I use that anymore, but I do have it. But I did take x-rays on patients as well. So there was that. What else? I interned at UCLA. I saw their School of Dentistry and got to just see several different types of organizations and nonprofits as well. So I did that for several years. I will tell you this, if you are pursuing any sort of career in medicine, it is extremely important to volunteer, to show that you have that sort of experience. I know right now it's very difficult. I get it. This time is weird, and you obviously can't go into hospital or different practices. But once the time does come, then I highly recommend checking that out. For everybody, by the way, in California, um, I know this just because that's where I did all my internships. Anyone in California, whether you're in high school or in college, you can, once they open it up, you can volunteer at UCLA or USC. They have different programs. So make sure to check that out. I also believe Lima Linda, that's actually where I wanted to go initially for dental school, but I decided obviously not to be a dentist. But they have a lot of internships, and then you will actually get a letter of rec from the department. So that's a big thing that you can do. So highly recommend checking out different programs. I don't know what they specifically have for. Actually, no, they do. They should have something for pre-med. I know they have anything for audiology because one of my best friends is an audiologist now. So she did that. I told her to do the UCLA program, and that helped her get into her grad school actually, which is awesome. Um, let's see another question. Hi, Melissa. Let me see. I am currently in honors chem at a high school and preparing for the AP next year. Do you have any tips or things to study prior to going into AP? Yes. This is pretty much for everybody who's just starting out in chemistry, whether it's honors, AP, intro, a college level course. One of the main things that I highly recommend you do is one, if your math skills are not up to date, and I know that it may be like, what math, make sure to focus on that. So, like things like, even if it's pre-algebra to algebra and certain topics, even I would say algebra 2, you will see in chemistry, you will see logarithms, you will see you need to know how to write things in scientific notation. What else? You'll have to, deal with fractions again. I know fractions and just those sort of common things. So, one, I would say if your math skills are not there, make sure to work on it, to actually work on your math skills. And I even have a way that you can do that. I literally created a playlist. It's one of my new playlists. It's called The Math You'll Use in Chemistry. So I already designed everything for you, telling you what you should focus on and helping you understand one, how, actually even just remember the math and then how that applies to chemistry. So I do recommend checking that out. That is going to start off with certain topics that you do see initially in chemistry. So that is one of my main tips. Plus, that playlist also has practice problems that you can try out, and it has a free course that you can then sign up for. And those are all of the step-by-step answers. So I do explain it in a video after that. So I highly recommend checking that out. Um, besides that, besides that entire thing, if your math skills are fine, I still recommend checking it out regardless. But the first thing that you are going to cover is sig figs, significant figures, and dimensional analysis. So that is something I highly recommend you focus on and understand. That does tend to get tricky for people in the very beginning just because it's new. So those two topics I would say are very important to focus on. And again, in that playlist, I do have those topics covered. I explain it very well there. Okay, what else do we have? Let's see. Which topics should I go over before classes start for Chem 2? Yes. So for everyone taking Chem 2, one of the main ones that you're going to start off with or even get into a little bit later is kinetics. So kinetics, that is basically just talking about different the rates of the reaction, basically. So reaction rates, that's essentially what kinetics is talking about. So how fast of, reaction will happen, essentially. How fast can we go from start to finish? And of course, it gets a little bit more complicated than that. There is more math. So for Chem 2, again, you will see more math. I would say this is even more than Chem 1. So that playlist would benefit anybody who needs a little bit of a refresher with their math skills for, chemistry overall. So definitely check out that playlist. I do have some videos that do cover Chem 2 things there as well. But as for kinetics, I would say the math does kind of trick people sometimes, so beware of that. I do have a playlist and I have notes on that as well. So for kinetics, I do have a playlist that is talking about how to find the rate law and the rate constant. So highly recommend. I'll put that in the chat now. Check that playlist out, as well as if you are able to, I highly recommend purchasing my Kinetics Notes. Again, that's like a how-to guide on everything kinetics. It's pretty much just everything that you need to know for that one topic in one place. I wanted to make it super easy for everybody so you don't have to, one, try to figure out what your book is even saying. And same goes with, with your professor if you don't completely understand what they're talking about. I do outline every single type of question I could think of and explain every single step. So it's really nice and handy to just have that. By every single type of problem, I mean, like I've always hated, by the way, like I've always just really I never understood when you would walk into a class and your professor would be like, okay, today we're going to cover, kinetics, sure. And then they give you a very, very easy example. But then your exam is nothing like that example, or it's just crazy difficult. It's frustrating. And you can't find that in your book. You can't find it, like, it's just nowhere to be found. So I wanted to make sure to actually put, things that you would see on your exam, so that's why I literally put different types of levels of questions in the kinetic notes, as well as just solving for different things. It's not just like, let's say if you were solving for um, time, I don't just have, hey, you're solving for time. You're actually going to solve for every single one of the variables. I have an example of each one of those and for each type of reaction order. So I wanted to give you variety. I wanted to give you pretty much preparation on every single situation that you could see. So that's essentially what I try to do with my notes. Yeah, so highly recommend checking out Kinetics and everything that I have on it. Da, da, da. Hi, Melissa. Actually, I answered that one. What's the difference between chem in high school and in college? So it depends on what chem you're taking. I would say AP Chem, AP Chem and college level chem are similar. Um, I would even actually, depending on your professor, I would even say that AP Chem is harder. Like, yeah, I know. I say that just because you do have that exam, that board exam. because you do have the AP Chem, test that you have to take afterwards. It's preparing you for that, and that's a lot harder than some of the exams you actually take in college. So I know that's shocking, but again, it does depend on your professor. But overall, at least from one, my own experience, and two, um, just students that I have tutored previously, I noticed that the AP Chem students that I was tutoring and the college level students I was tutoring, the college level was so much easier than the AP Chem. Not to say that it's an easy topic, just saying that AP Chem tends to be more detailed and tries to have more trickier questions, I would say. So, so I would say that if you're in regular high school or honors chemistry, then it's just a slower process. So a regular high school class is going to be, it's not going to go into as much detail as, let's say, college level chemistry. College level chemistry is going to be designed for more of the science majors and will go into a lot more detail and is at a faster pace than high school. Let's see. Okay, what else didn't I cover? I took college general chem in my senior year of high school. I'm a freshman in college now and will be taking analytical chem in the spring semester. How should I prepare? Thanks. I really need help. Analytical chem. Okay. Trying to remember everything on analytical chem. So, analytical chem it was more on like when I first took it, it's not that it was super hard, I would say. Um, it's not like biochem or physical chemistry. Analytical chem was more focused on the instruments and the machines. So I would recommend if you're not too great with lab, and actually this applies to everybody who feels like, I'm not the best with lab. I know it's a little bit different right now with the circumstances, but if you are able to actually go into the lab later on, um, what I recommend doing is getting better with that, getting more familiar with the equipment, understanding how it works. And the other thing I would say was something for myself when I would do lab, I actually used to get really, really nervous. I used to get really nervous before every single lab in the beginning. You always have this like thought that like I'm going to be that one person that blows up the lab. Like, why does that go to your mind? Thinking that you're going to be that one person who spills acid and it's going to eat your flesh. Like your mind goes there. And one for an entry level, first, not analytical chem, but for like entry level chemistry classes, they're not going to give you something so dangerous that's necessarily going to happen. Once you progress, sure, you will deal with, a little bit harsher chemicals, but they do warn you. But something I will say was that really helped me with one analytical chemistry, and that's actually I loved analytical chemistry just for the lab. Yeah, that was fun. It was really interesting to actually understand how everything applies to like common day life. Um, but but I would say getting better with lab. How you can do that, by the way, um, I actually would one read the lab. Shocker. I would actually read the lab manual and understand what I was doing to the point where I would even, I know this is extreme, but I would even draw like, because I couldn't figure out like how everything looked. So I would look things up online to see how the apparatus or the setup would look like. I would draw it out and then I would just actually draw out like, oh, okay, I'm going to add this amount. Then what's the purpose of the lab? Oh, okay, the purpose is to find the unknown, and then I would just keep going from there. So I was always prepared for lab versus I don't know what we're doing. So because of that, I actually did very well in lab. I would always get A's in lab. I was typically one of the first people out once I ended up preparing each time for lab. Um, so that I would say for everyone doing lab, whether online or in person, I highly recommend actually reading the lab and preparing and watching videos or drawing things out and understanding what's the purpose? Why are we even doing this? Okay. Let's see, what other questions we got? Let me scroll a little bit further down. Okay. let's see. We need some videos for equilibrium. I'm glad you say that. I'm so glad you said that. I have a video on equilibrium. Shocker, I know. I have one beautifully designed video on equilibrium. Thank you very much. Uh, and it's let's see, it's actually in my new playlist. It's in the math you'll use in chemistry, specifically how to use the quadratic formula. So that video does talk about equilibrium questions. It literally covers several different types that you will see. It even talks about the equilibrium constant, how to find everything. I solve everything. Plus, it even comes with practice problems, so you get double the amount of types of questions of me explaining it. So make sure to check that out. But I'm glad you said that. And by the way, for everyone taking Chem 2, that is going to be extremely beneficial. Same with AP Chem. You will see equilibrium again, so highly recommend that video. It is, it's called it's talking about the quadratic formula. So how to use the quadratic formula in chemistry. Okay. Which, yeah, I know, we still use the quadratic formula. Crazy. Let's see. I'm always the turtle of the lab. Yeah, I used to be. Carla, I used to be too. Like, I felt so confused and like, I don't know how you guys' experience is with lab, at least when we used to actually go inside, but in the beginning, yeah, I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. Um, but yeah, it's because I actually drew everything out and did my homework basically before, and actually did the pre-lab and all of that. I know, crazy. It really helped. It really helped. And I seriously used to be so bad at lab in the very beginning. It intimidated me completely. But after that, it actually became fun and understanding everything. And yeah, uh, let's see. What other questions do you guys have for me? Yeah, this is a good one. So, Melissa, any channels you recommend for organic chemistry? Yes, I do. So, I really like Leah Forsai. So, she's a favorite. Everyone taking O-Chem, I highly recommend checking her out. She does explain very well. And she does talk a lot about like the mechanisms. And I've just always been a fan. And then, of course, the organic chemistry tutor is, I mean, yeah, he has so many videos. So, if you can't find if I don't have a video, then I also recommend the organic chemistry tutor. Um, let's see. Labs are hard online. Any tips to succeed? So, I've never done a lab online. I will tell you that. Since mine were all in person. What specifically? I have seen some labs, of course, online. But what specifically is challenging about them right now? I would love to get your guys' input. Let's see what you say. But I would think that a lot of it is just, well, one, you kind of feel like, like, really, this is my lab. Um, but I want to know why, like, what's challenging about, about having your lab online, like what's stumping you guys? As I wait for your question, let me answer another one. Let me see. Is chemistry needed for a forensic scientist? Any sort of scientist, yes, basically. Um, I would, yeah, you're definitely going to need chemistry there. Since you were in the dentistry field for a while, how does it work to get into university, specifically interviews? It's going to basically depend on one, the school you want to apply to. So what I recommend doing for anyone trying to get into grad school, um, one, research the school, know why you want to go there. So, for example, I noticed that like I initially wanted to go to UCLA, and then I decided, you know what, maybe we're not the best fit. Maybe I won't get in. Um, instead, I pivoted and saw Loma Linda. And the reason for that was UCLA is going to want the highest grades possible. They're going to want the highest test exams possible, the DAT. And because I didn't really, since I struggled throughout chemistry, I didn't have that. So instead, what I did have was the experience. So I had plenty of like years of experience as a dental assistant, and Loma Linda focused more on the experience side. So because I knew that Loma Linda had that, that's why I decided, hey, that's a better fit for myself. So don't just look at, like, oh, that school is, the perfect thing. Like, I really, really want them to take me. Look at it instead as like, you know what, is that actually the best school for you? Like, it's something that you're deciding to commit your life for 4 years, if not more, if you specialize. So depending on, like, it's basically dependent on your situation. If you do have those high test scores and you do have those high, GPA, then, picking a school like that, it is going to be competitive, but that's something that you can basically get an interview with, versus another school that is heavy on experience based, and um, basically that, and maybe even like, publications, or any sort of other accomplishments that may set you apart. Then I do recommend basically sharing that, going to figuring out what schools are right for you first, identifying what their mission is, and then from there, making sure that your application is kind of tailored to that. So that's going to help you get into the interview process. So just a little side note, though, I actually never submitted my application. I know I filled it all out and then decided this isn't what I want. I did go to several conferences. I had so many mentors, that were different dentists, for years since I was in high school. So I definitely know a lot about the process, but I did not actually submit my application and then get into the interview process. Though I do know how it works, because I did so much research on it. And I also have friends in the medical field. So like I mentioned, one of my best friends is an audiologist. So she actually is practicing now. So she does know all of that. But yeah, that's kind of some advice that I would recommend. Okay, let me scroll back as you guys are mentioning all this. Hey Melissa, do you have any tips for taking notes in Chem 2 and studying for concepts or terms? I'm not sure if I should be using flashcards or something else. Yeah, so for flashcards, what I've always noticed with flashcards is like they're good with one, like memorization. That's kind of the main thing. I would say it's not necessarily too good for anything that requires math. So, like naming compounds, right? Memorizing those polyatomic ions, great. Actually practicing naming anything, perfect. If you're trying to memorize any terms, flashcards are great. But the best thing that you're going to do for Chem 2 is actually trying as many practice problems as possible and paying attention to the different patterns that you'll see. So seeing, hey, I have this titration question, and it's asking me, to find the pH of different points. And it's basically practicing and seeing what are all the steps? What is this question asking me? Oh, I'm going to do a different type of question. What are the steps there? What are the commonalities for all of that? So doing as many practice problems as possible for Chem 2 is going to be extremely important. Besides the math side, I would say the concepts. So understanding like what affects a rate, like this is specifically for kinetics, but yeah, what affects a reaction rate, and seeing that and actually understanding those concepts. And you could even, I recommend applying it to everyday life and trying to figure out how these concepts apply to everyday life. That's actually how you're going to remember all of this and how it's actually going to make sense, and it's even kind of cool to see, like, oh, I learned that in my science class and it's actually applicable for my everyday life, because I know a lot of times you're like, why am I learning this? Why does this matter? So that I would say is what to do for Chem 2 classes. So practice. Uh, Next, someone said the hardest thing for me in lab is having to come up with our own plans, which isn't something I've had much experience for. Yeah, Yeah, no, completely agree. That was, I would say that's definitely something that's difficult is um, just understanding like all the math and how you could actually figure out how much of a sample you're going to need, what's the limiting reactant and all of that. So, one major thing I would say is sometimes you just feel like you're not so strong with the math part or the stoichiometry portion of it, finding limiting reactants, doing those sort of things. And because of that, you're not able to then apply that to anything like the plan. So I do recommend getting stronger on the stoichiometry side and getting stronger on the limiting reactant side. I have so many videos on these topics. Same with molarity, like figuring out the concentration, figuring out the equivalence point. So I recommend, I do have a newer video as well for everyone who is now kind of getting into, molar mass, multimole ratios, all the stoichiometry side. It's in the playlist I mentioned, the math you'll use in chemistry. It's called Converting Units in Chemistry, I believe. So that one talks about everything you'll need for stoichiometry and even explains what stoichiometry is. Same with dimensional analysis. So I do recommend getting familiar with that, and that's going to help you understand how to actually do all the steps, how to find, like how to find the limiting reactant and to understand what your product is going to be, what's going to be the percent yield. If I'm just saying random things right now because you haven't covered that yet, you'll get there. But definitely strengthening those concepts is going to help. Hey, Melissa, if you have to take organic chemistry during the summer, what do you recommend to be successful? Yeah, so I did take organic chemistry in the summer, though I, of course, don't recommend taking difficult classes in a short window of time, especially if they require you to then take the second, half of it, because unfortunately, it's not going to be as strong or your foundation is going to be as strong as you need it to be. But is it possible? Yes, it is. It definitely is possible if you're not taking any other classes that are also challenging and basically just lighten your load. So if you're taking organic chemistry, understand that you will, in the summer, understand that you will be studying every single day. That's going to be the reality since it is such a short window of time. And I say every day, even on weekends. That's how I was successful overall with O-Chem. I did have to hire a tutor at a certain point because it was just so fast paced. So if that's a possibility, I also recommend that. Same with study groups. So study groups saved me for so many of my difficult classes, specifically O-Chem and biochemistry. So when I took biochemistry, I was in an awesome study group, and that saved me. So that's one thing else to think about. What else? Um, as I mentioned before, I don't know if you heard this part, but for any sort of O-Chem class, I recommend not memorizing the reactions, but actually understanding the mechanisms, understanding how to identify the 4 different types of reactions, SN1, SN2, E1, E2, all of that, you'll get there. So that's something I recommend. Since you are taking this in the summer, before doing this, I do have a playlist that I actually have 2 playlists that can help you prepare and not be so like walking in like what does this all mean, because it does feel like a new language. So let me be a bit of your translator in the very beginning. I do have 2 playlists. One is, what is it called? It's the oh my gosh, review for, I totally forgot what it's called. General Chemistry 2 review for organic chemistry. There it is. Or I think it's General Chemistry review for organic chemistry. It's been some time. Yes, it's that one. And then I have another one called Organic Chemistry Introduction. Simple introduction. So those 2 I'll put in the chat, but I do recommend watching those 2 and then getting familiar with what organic chemistry is, what it looks like, and then just understanding. I'd say like the very beginning is just understanding the structures, like how everything is drawn is so different from what you're used to. Though it does come from the idea of Lewis structures, it's drawn very differently, and it's specifically drawn where you're not showing the hydrogens anymore. So it pretty much just looks like a bunch of lines. So understanding what each point in everything means is very, very important before you progress in the class. So I'll put that in the chat. Okay, let's see. Where else are we? Uh, okay. How should we take notes? Like, should we write down everything, or how do we know what to write down? My notes are basically just copies of the professor's lectures, and I feel like I'm wasting time. Yeah, completely agree. So, um, one main thing is rewriting your notes. So I understand, like, when you're in class, you're basically just frantically writing down everything that your professor says. If they sneeze, you write down sneezed, like all these different things. Like you're just basically just rushing to write everything down. Are you actually learning and present during the lecture? I wasn't. I didn't feel that way at all. I felt like they were just spewing this information, and I was just literally trying to write everything down. I used to even, for the professors that let me, I used to even record the lecture. But but yeah, I would say you're gonna have to rewrite those lecture notes in your own voice, in your own. It's kind of just a way to know what's going on. So what I used to do, besides getting ahead, as I mentioned before, I used to watch videos, read the chapter, do as much as possible, prep work possible to just get familiar with whatever I was going to talk, like whatever the professor was going to talk about. And I was just trying to understand the terms, understand the reactions, concepts, you name it. And then once I actually went to lecture, it felt like it wasn't so foreign and I understood what they were saying. And it didn't feel like, oh, I don't need to write that down. I already understand that. I already wrote that down from my notes or from the video I watched. So highly recommend doing that, guys. Seriously, I have such a huge, database of resources for you. So many videos. Same with how-to guides, which are my chemistry notes. Highly recommend checking those out as well. But doing that before class is going to be so beneficial, and then doing as many practice problems as possible. So to answer your question, how to take notes overall, you're basically going to rewrite all of your professor's notes to just a point where you actually understand what it's saying. Like the notes are for you. It's basically a way for you to be like, oh, how can I condense this topic into just a small amount of pages and me actually understand like what are the bullet points, what are the most important parts to study, what's most likely going to be on the exam. So that's how I recommend taking notes. And I just realized we got a couple of super chats. Thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you guys. You guys are very kind. I appreciate that. Um, one says, keep it up. Nice. And the other one says, tips for organic chemistry 1 and 2 and biochem. Yes, definitely. So, as mentioned, for everyone taking O-Chem and I'd even say biochem, it is going to be really heavy on reactions, and it's going to go more into, it's actually going to move away from math. So if you don't like math, you'll most likely like O-Chem a lot better. It is a lot of, reactions and understanding how, um, basically how a reaction occurs, how a product is made. You get a lot more technical into it. Like think of it as you're basically seeing how bonds are being formed and broken overall, how electrons are moving, where they're moving, and there are things called mechanisms where you're going to have to understand how to actually move those electrons and understand where they go and how they form a product. So that's going to be something that's major, is just that understanding of one, how do I even draw Lewis structures? That's what you're taking from, general chemistry. You're also going to be taking those ideas of general chemistry, of resonance, of hybridization, as I mentioned, drawing structures, formal charges, Vesper theory, all of that. And you'll be using that to then draw different structures, which essentially, as mentioned, don't have hydrogens. They look a little bit different. They look like lines, really. Um, and and what you'll need to understand is just how everything works. So I do have also another playlist on that you can watch. It's called, I believe it's just my organic chemistry videos that I have. So those are all the O-Chem videos that I have. I do have 3 videos that talk about a specific reaction, but I would even say like like watch it, even if you're just about to get into mechanisms or get into reactions overall. It's extremely beneficial because I do go over how mechanisms work, and I chop it down to someone who's like, I think you guys know by now. I like to teach in a way where it's overly simplified, so that if you're new to this, because of course you are, if you're new to this, then you could understand it. And I explain, I break down all of the different steps. I break down all of the terminology. So that I would say I have 3 videos. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I believe it was hydrohalogenation. I had 3 different videos that I did there, and I did see all of them. Yeah, I think it was that hydrohalogenation. It's been some time, but yeah, I recommend checking those out, specifically if you're taking O-Chem. Of course, again, as mentioned, I do recommend also checking out the introduction that I have for O-Chem just to understand like what in the world O-Chem is and what it focuses on. As for biochemistry, definitely get an understanding of O-Chem. So it does still use several different mechanisms from, O-Chem. Again, don't just memorize, actually understand how everything works, how the electrons move, why they move that way, what kicks off the reaction, what happens next, so that I would say. Another thing I do have, and in all those videos, I do mention it. I do have a free organic chemistry survival guide that literally just has every single reaction there for you already made. I remember when I was taking O-Chem, I was like, man, it would be amazing if there was just a reaction list of everything I need, and it tells me all of them. Like it has the name, it gives me the reagent, it gives me, this is our starting material, this is going to be our product, and so on. So I made that for you because I remember how much of a headache it was just trying to write everything down. So make sure to download that if you're taking O-Chem. Okay, let's see. Let me go back to other questions. All right, I'm going to try to go back. Let me drink water as my voice is trying to leave me. By the way, for O-Chem, you'll notice this in the beginning, but like my drawing skills weren't there in the very beginning, and your structures are going to look like bad. At least in my case, they did. And once you progress in the class, it'll get better. But yeah, I would say though, on exams, be careful with how you draw everything. Make sure to not accidentally draw a line or even a dot, because that can show that there's an electron there when there wasn't. So be aware of that whenever you're drawing these structures, especially when you're doing this, in class or even online. So I will tell you that because same with actually, oh, I remember this. Same with capitalization. So when you're learning how to like name different structures, different organic chemistry structures, actually even regular naming compounds, don't capitalize anything. Like, don't. I learned that the hard way in O-Chem. So I remember we were doing like a group project or something, and the professor never said that you're not supposed to capitalize anything. We didn't think anything of it. We were just learning it, and we capitalized everything, like the beginning letter of every single compound and or structure. I'm sorry, and we got it wrong. We actually got like he marked so many points off of our paper. So no capitalizing ever. Okay, so make sure with that. That's kind of like my warning to everybody. I wish I would have been. I was told, but unfortunately wasn't. And even though I tried getting the points back, but unfortunately, they were a tough professor. Yeah. And then were you always good at chem? No, I was terrible. Um, no. Yeah, there was like a time where I didn't even know what a covalent bond was. Yeah. And I'm sure several of you right now are like, what is a covalent bond? You'll get there. But there was a time, like, like to tell you, like, I was a chem major at a time, and I was a chem major. And there was moments where I'm like, what's a covalent bond again? What's an ionic bond again? So no, I did not. I wasn't always great at chem. Um, it took a lot of practice. It also took, I'd say something that the reason why I wasn't initially interested in chemistry. And I know that's shocking to hear. As mentioned, I initially wanted to be a dentist. Um, what was what can be frustrating, and I understand if anyone feels this way, is you kind of feel like, okay, I graduated from high school, great, I'm in college, woohoo. Why am I still not doing exactly what I want to do, which in my case was dentistry? Like I wanted to skip my undergrad years and just immediately go to dental school. I felt like I was ready. I know what I want to do. And it feels frustrating to then go through another 4 years of, your undergrad and taking classes that you feel like, how does this apply to, dentistry, to, you know, whatever you want to do. And there was in the very beginning, I felt like I just wanted to get out. Like my first few years of college, I felt like, can we just speed this up and I can graduate? I can do what I actually want to do with my life. Like, stop wasting my time. I felt like I was wasting my time. And unfortunately, that mentality, that mindset actually made me spend more time in college. So, yeah, don't have that mindset. And I tell you that because I didn't enjoy the process. And I know it's difficult at times to enjoy the process, especially right now during this time. Um, but one, you're not going to get this time back. You're not going to, like you're obviously going to look back and you're going to say, man, I really wish that I would have taken this seriously, or just taken this once, or taken this advice and not have to retake this class again because it's frustrating, you know? So yeah, I had to retake my first chemistry class. That was really discouraging, as a freshman in college, and you're so excited, and you think everything's going to be great. But once again, my mindset wasn't there. So having your mindset be, um, one, I'm going to enjoy this process. I understand that this is just what I have to do to get to the career I want to be. And you can learn so much along the way, So with your chemistry classes, biology classes, math, whatever it may be, even if you don't necessarily see, I don't know, the Pythagorean theorem again, um, you're still learning how you learn. One, that's what you're learning. Another thing you're learning is structure and time management. So these are different skills that you are understanding now. Um, and I tell you that because this has shaped me now as an adult, and I'm not in school anymore. I graduated, and now being in my career, I understand that my mindset and all of the things that I was doing in college has truly shaped me for who I am today, and it's built such a foundation. Um, yeah, so these are things that you don't realize later on, but they truly do add up to who you become and like your work ethic overall. Cool. Hope that made some sense. And so I would say try to find a way to enjoy the process. I know at times you feel you feel frustrated and you just want to get out and graduate. Um, let's see. I believe we just got another super chat, right? Yeah. Thank you. You helped me so much during Gen Chem. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate your guys' support. Let me answer some more questions. Um, let's see. Did you go to graduate school? No, I did not. So, um, I did not go to grad school, though I do have plans later on in life, to go back to school. Right now, well, not right now, obviously. During these times, I don't. I do actually want to go to a physical location, but later on in life, I would like to get my master's. Not in chemistry per se, maybe in education. I haven't honestly decided just yet, but I do want to get my master's later on, now that I've done this education thing. Honestly, once you get your first degree, you kind of feel like, what else can I do? You know, that's kind of the mindset that you get into. And you do feel like, okay, like I can keep this going. So not at this very, very moment, but later on I do have plans to get my master's. And I'm sure I will make a video doing explaining what I decide to do and even showing the process. I don't know yet. But I could. Um, let's see. What inspired you to continue chemistry? Yeah. Um, so what inspired me overall to stick with chemistry? One, I would say I did like the math. That before I became a chemistry tutor, I actually was a math tutor. That was what I started off doing. And because numbers were easier for me, um, chemistry made more sense, but it was actually the concepts that got me, unfortunately. And what got me to continue was one, of course, I did want to be a dentist. I was still pursuing that up until actually graduation. And I knew that being like doing chemistry, that's going to be really helpful for what I wanted to do in dentistry, as well as I'd say research. I initially wanted to get into research, so I did do an internship at UCLA. It was what was it? It was in the sleep lab, random, I know, but I did do that for some time, and I really enjoyed the research process. I had ideas at the time for different, dental things. And I just thought, hey, it would be really cool to, maybe get my chemistry degree and then eventually use that. And if I had an idea to create something new or be in a research lab for specifically dentistry, I could, so that's something that I ended up really enjoying. And that's actually also came from my newfound love of lab. I really enjoyed lab. Like that was my favorite place, I'd say, to be versus lecture. Lecture was a lot harder for me than lab was. And I don't know, like lab just felt like I could actually apply everything that I was learning and it just clicked. So that is why I stuck with chemistry, because I had ideas and I kind of wanted to get into research. Though I didn't later on, I ended up, obviously teaching now, which is my passion now. But yeah, I'd say it was that I found an interest for how to actually apply the sciences. Another question: would you retake a class if you got a C minus in it? Yes, I would. So definitely do that because a lot of the prerequisites for grad schools, if you decide to, go afterwards to grad school, is you cannot have a C minus. So you have to have above anything above a C minus. So a C is fine, but I would actually say it's a good thing that you got a C minus instead of a C because that just means you now have the ability to retake it. So for a lot of schools, whenever you have like a C, you are not allowed to retake the class. Like that counts as like passing. It's just you can't retake it. So it's I know it's kind of like it's bittersweet to have a C minus. Of course, that's not what you want to get, but at least you now have the opportunity to retake it and do better. So you do have now the opportunity to get an A or B, so yes, retake the class if you want to get into grad school afterwards. Let's see. For everyone asking if I do tutoring sessions, if I still tutor, I do not at this time. Actually, I don't. I stopped tutoring to focus on new projects, to focus on a lot of new things overall. Like I want to be able to make new videos and make a lot of things that I'm going to be like every other YouTuber here and be like, I can't tell you about it. But I can't tell you about it. But there are more things in the works that I am always working on literally every single day. So that's why I stopped tutoring just because I didn't have the time and the bandwidth to be able to do both. And it's overall going to benefit everybody. I am trying to make more things to kind of like, teach to the masses essentially. So yeah. Um, but of course, I do have my chemistry notes that are really, really helpful. Um, and like I said, I designed them as how-to guides to help you throughout these challenging topics. So make sure to check those out if you do want additional help. Okay. Um, what other questions do we have? What degree do you have? I have my bachelor's degree in chemistry. Let's see. Hey, Melissa, I'm currently taking honors chemistry in high school, but will take the AP test in May. Do you have any tips, recommendations for how I can prepare, for how I can study and prepare? Yes. So, let's see. Okay, for the AP test overall, um, I know there's obviously a lot of information that you're going to have to focus on, but one of the main things for these types of exams is I've noticed that they love to throw the exceptions to questions, and by that, I mean, like, let's say if I kind of feel like you guys haven't covered a lot of this yet, but let's say I'm going to just say electron configuration, right? So you understand how to do everything for, how to find the electron configuration of an element, but that's not going to be the question per se. That's too easy. Instead, they're going to throw the exceptions to those rules and those ones that you don't typically see. That's going to most likely be on your test. So I would recommend knowing all of the exceptions to those certain rules. So not just electron configuration, but I'm just saying overall, like Lewis structures, know what the exceptions are for the octet rule. Um, same goes with I don't know why nothing can come to my mind right now, but the trends, there we go, periodic trends, any exceptions to those rules. So knowing that is definitely going to set you apart and it won't be as tricky. The other thing I would say is the AP exam is very heavy on concepts. So you will definitely need to understand how to apply those concepts. Like how does, you'll get into this later, like how does thermodynamics work in um, like how does entropy affect the universe or the surroundings or the system, those sort of things. Those concepts are something that you're really going to want to focus on and truly understand, because that will be part of the AP exam. And of course, do as many practice problems as possible. I do recommend already getting familiar with how the College Board actually tests, doing those. I mean, you can find those online. You could also find several different books on Amazon or whatnot, but doing that already, understanding how the test is designed is one of the major things that you'll see with any sort of exam overall, whether it's College Board or even people studying for the MCAT, DAT, the OAT, everything. Understanding how how the exam is designed, understanding what it's like, and just basically, yeah, that's kind of essentially what you're doing. It's test strategy essentially. Let's see. Let me go back. What else are you guys asking? And I know I'm trying to answer everyone's questions. Um, let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to see what other questions you may have. Let me know if you do have any more questions. I'm gonna just keep looking through everything else that you guys have previously asked. What other concerns do you have for the class if you haven't started, or if you have? Let me know. I'm happy to answer it. How do you deal with difficult concepts? Yeah. So, one of the main things that I like to do with difficult concepts is to find a way to apply it to my everyday life. Um, like, um, oh man, I'm like just remembering all the different random things that I used to, the weird things that I would do. Like I used to teach entropy with a zombie apocalypse and just making it funny, and putting my humor in it. I'll have to make a video on that. That'd be interesting. But applying it to your everyday life, not that zombie apocalypse or everyday life, but applying it to something that or that is funny, Making that connection is going to be so helpful. Once I started doing that, like it made so much sense. Like, here I can give you an example. Like, let's say thermochemistry, if you're looking at activation energy, real quick, activation energy is basically the energy required to go from, reactants to products. And I would sometimes like teach it like, oh, how can I speed up, the reaction? But actually, yeah, how can I speed up the reaction? Well, I can add a catalyst. And how I used to teach this was, it's kind of like waking up in the morning, like the reactant is you in your bed, and the product is you actually getting up. How can you speed up that process of waking up? Well, coffee can act as your catalyst, and that can lower the amount of activation energy or energy required to have you get up from your bed, So it's things like that. Like, how can you apply it to everyday life? How can you make these connections? That is going to be so helpful. Advice for high school students starting chemistry. Yeah. So as mentioned, for anybody who's just starting chemistry, I would say math, like know your math skills. And it doesn't even have to be, I'm not talking about calculus, not saying any of that. I'm just saying basic algebra. Like I've seen that, I mean, I get it. Like you haven't seen this sort of math in a while, even if it's just been a summer, you forget. Of course, if you don't if you don't look at that every single day, you're going to forget. So I would say to make sure to double check all of that, understand where you may be weak in any of the math areas. As mentioned, I do have a playlist on this, the math you'll use in chemistry. So I highly recommend doing that. The other thing would be to just already start focusing on what you need to know. So I would say I actually have a playlist that says start here. And that's literally a great way to start. That'll help you understand what you're going to cover in the very beginning and start getting prepared. If you could if you could retake chemistry, would you? Um, yeah. So I'm like, if that's your situation right now, yes, I would. Like if you got a C minus or if you're able to do that, I'd say yes. I don't know if that question was for your situation right now, but yes, I would say that I actually had to since I didn't pass the first time. I didn't get a score that was, I think I got a D, my first chemistry class. So I actually had to because I didn't pass the class. Um, it though it was though it was discouraging, like extremely discouraging. Um, I would say you need to do it. Like you need to kind of just understand, like, okay, I failed, and not necessarily accept the failure, because I don't want you to necessarily like, accept that defeat, but understand that it happened. And then, and you're allowed to feel that that happened. I personally cried. I felt like a failure. I felt all the emotions, honestly. I felt like, great, is this truly what I should be doing with my life? Um, I was so good with with dentistry, but why am I failing so horribly here? Um, but one, if you have to retake chemistry and you're feeling this way, if you're feeling like a failure, you have all these doubts about your abilities, one, you have to forgive yourself. That was a huge thing for me. Um, and ultimately, you also have to look at any bad habits that you may have. It is a very difficult thing to be that self aware and literally say, I'm the problem. And I was my own, I was the reason I failed. I did not do everything in my power to truly do well. So, and by that, I mean, I didn't form a study group. I didn't study as much as I should have. I crammed, I didn't plan ahead. I didn't really show up to, professors, what is it? The hours, I didn't go to those office hours. I was like, why am I blanking? I didn't go to them. Yeah. At the time I didn't go to them. Then later on when I retook chemistry and I saw how important they were, I did. because I felt intimidated, because it felt stupid, So you basically have to reinvent yourself as a student, and figure out what are the bad habits that I have, how can I change them, and the other thing I'd say that completely changed how I thought and how I acted, and even to this day I think about, is if you changed your major, if you gave up on your goal at the time, you know, would you regret it? Like, really, like this is such a huge conversation with yourself, and I know, it's not easy, um, but I literally was kind of like internalizing all this and just saying, would I regret this? And yes, I would. I would, because I didn't feel like I actually gave it my 100%. I didn't feel that this was the best I could do, and it's tough because like you have counselors or professors telling you, "Hey, maybe this isn't right for you. Maybe you should change your major." I heard that so many times. Um, and one, I do understand their point. I do understand that, hey, if you're not succeeding in the class, the advice is to tell them to change your major. Maybe this isn't for you. They're weed out courses, meaning these courses are designed to be difficult to see who's going to make it in the field or not. Horrible, I know. But I then had to look at it and say, you don't know me, like the counselor to the professor. You don't know me, you don't know my abilities, and you don't know how bad I want this. So that's something else that I do recommend everyone kind of look into, like internalize and think, am I giving this my 100%? You know, if if whoever I want to be, that doctor, that dentist, that nurse, you name it, my future self, would they be proud of me right now? Am I actually doing all of the habits and actions that that successful person that I want to be is doing? So that's something that really helped me improve everything, improve, not only my learning, my grades, all of that, but just as a person overall. And even to this day, I still have to think that. I still have to focus on that. I am still not where I want to be. It's just something of your own self that you want more for yourself. But looking back, I am very proud that I didn't give up, and that I don't regret, you know, that I don't regret that anymore. I don't regret that I didn't change my major. I'm glad I didn't change my major. Yeah. How long did it take you to fully understand chemistry? Pretty much fully understand. I feel like you don't fully understand it until until you teach it, honestly. Yeah, I know that's shocking. Um, but yeah, like the more I teach, the more I do this, the more um knowledgeable I am in the topic and the subject. But to answer what I believe your question was, maybe not like fully understand it, but enough to get a good grade and then move on to the next class. For me, it did take 2 semesters, so it took a year. But once again, that was my own mistakes. And I own up to those mistakes, and this is why I advise you guys not to do those same mistakes. Please save yourself, save yourself, save yourself some time. Um, and money, because that gets expensive, retaking these classes and having to pay this out of pocket. Um, but yeah, it took me some time, so that's why I seriously keep advising you to watch as many videos, or read your book before your actual class. And this is just the purpose of spending as much time as possible on the material. It's essentially the same as learning how to play an instrument. You're not going to be a master in a week, you need to spend as much time practicing to actually have that new skill and to master that. So that's the same thing with science classes. You need to spend as much time practicing, understanding the concepts, understanding the terms, to be able to master the topic. So it is possible. Okay. Um, Anything else, guys? I think we got a lot of this out there. Once again, guys, thank you so much for staying. I know that I had tech issues in the beginning. Thank you for your patience, for your understanding, and thank you so much for being here. I seriously enjoy doing all of this. I will have more of these types of live streams, just talking to you guys, answering questions regarding, advice and study tips or anything like that, or even career advice, life advice, all of that. Um, I'll be doing that again, and I'll announce that on my channel. So make sure to check that out. And yeah, that's kind of I think that's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and I wish you the best this semester, and Happy New Year if I didn't already say that. All right, guys, I'll see you in my next live stream.